I'm going to play this clip from the Roland Martin show from this morning regarding issues of regarding the replacement of the Supreme Court Justice Scalia and the need for, or the want for, or the desire for that replacement to be an African American woman. Now, I agree that it is beyond time that they had placed a black woman on the Supreme Court, and that should have been done at the first opening, which is the opening that Kagan received. But for some unknown reason, our black president, Barack Obama, decided not even to interview a single black woman for the position. Now, various groups are calling for a black woman to be nominated, and I'll make my commentary at the end of Roland Martin's segment.
With respect to our process, we're going to do the same thing that we did with respect to Justice Kagan's nomination and Justice Sotomayor's nomination. We're going to find somebody who is an outstanding legal mind, somebody who cares deeply about our democracy and cares about rule of law. There's not going to be any particular position on a particular issue that determines whether or not I nominate them, but I'm going to present somebody who indisputably is qualified for the seat, and any fair-minded person, even somebody who disagreed with my politics, would say would serve with honor and integrity on the court.
President Barack Obama yesterday speaking in California at a news conference where he answered a number of questions, including what is going to happen when it comes to replacing Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who died over the weekend. The question many of us are asking is, will we actually see a black woman on the Supreme Court? An historic pick. There are a number of different names being floated around when you see Barry's short list as well. There are tons of sisters who are more than qualified to sit on the Supreme Court. The question is, will the president challenge Republicans by naming a black woman? Let's go to our panel. We have Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist with the Exceptional Leadership Institute for Women. She, of course, has been working with many other sisters in terms of trying to make this happen. Also, we have on the panel here, we have attorney Yolanda Young as well. We have Paris Jannard.
I'm here.
Paris is here looking nice little pocket square there as well. And of course, we have Amber. Amber, how you doing?
Good.
You good? All right, then. Of course, Ted Shaw is going to be joining us in a second as well. Let's go right to Avis first. Avis, I know the Black Women's Roundtable had a conference call on Sunday talking about this very issue. What is the status of that? Will there be a public call for the president to name an African-American woman to the Supreme Court?
Well, I think that there are a wide range of black women who are really pushing to make sure that there is a sister on the Supreme Court. It is time. I mean, this institution has been around since 1789. We have been here from the very beginning building this country, and there is no shortage of qualified black women who could fill that seat and do an extraordinary job. Given the fact that this is the constituency that has been his #1 supporter from day one, I think that it is well past due to make sure that we have some representation on the court.
But look, I mean, you know how these games go in Washington, D.C. in terms of bottom line is when other folks want to do something, they make their voices known. And so, you know, I believe this is not one where black women can be quiet. I believe it has to be public, and I believe they have to call on this president to actually nominate a black woman. Look what happened when Elena Kagan was nominated.
Absolutely.
African-American women stay silent.
Yep.
The one to respect the process. Folks said, oh, don't make it seem like you're pressuring the president. He nominates Kagan. To my understanding, a black woman wasn't even interviewed in that particular time.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. It was a bad look, frankly, on this administration's part. And I think that there are, generally speaking, outside and inside strategies that need to be played. And I think there is a role for black women to be extremely vocal and letting this administration know that, you know, not only does it just make sense, quite frankly, because we have, as I mentioned, a plethora of good people, not to mention Loretta Lynch, who is just confirmed. She's already been vetted. That, to me, is the natural choice. But even beyond her, there are a plethora of women who are qualified qualified for this position. But quite frankly, just as a political strategist, just from my own personal opinion, it makes sense. This is a constituency that is absolutely necessary if you want the Democrats to hold the White House and if you want your legacy to be protected with the next administration. And if you really want to energize that key base of your constituency, choose, really challenge the Republicans to say no to a black woman, and you will see millions of pissed off black women at the polls on the election day.
I want to go to Ted Shaw right now. Ted is director of the Center for Civil Rights at UNC Chapel Hill. Joins us via Skype. Ted, you've seen this process play out on many occasions. Is it important for black women organizations to step up and to publicly demand the president appoint a black woman to the court?
Well, I think that people have to be vocal. The old saying is that if you don't ask, you don't get it. Now, whether or not this president is going to be receptive to demands when they're framed that way, my sense of him is that he probably doesn't respond all that well to that. On the other hand, I think that certainly the Attorney General's name is in play. It makes sense. The politics make sense. But she's not the only African-American woman who's qualified for this position. The politics make a great deal of sense. There's no question about that. And we've never had an African-American woman on, and so I think the president is aware of that. But I think people do need to press for it.
Look, here's the deal. Justice Scalia, his funeral is going to take place on Saturday. I would not be surprised if the president will announce his pick next week, not wanting to go past the month of February. And so, folks, here are a list of folks that we've looked at that potentially, that first of all, should be on their list, should be considered. The Honorable Bernice Donald sits on the 6th Court of Appeals. She was appointed by President Barack Obama. We talked about her yesterday with Barbara Arnwine on the show. Attorney Danielle Gray served under the Obama administration and helped construct the Affordable Care Act. You also have Judge Deborah Batts, who sits on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. She's also the first openly gay black federal judge. U.S. Appeals Court Judge Janice Rogers Brown's already right there in the district. You can take her name off that list, though, because that ain't gonna happen.
It's a smart pick. It's a smart pick because you're Republicans to support what the president's doing. You put a conservative justice up there like Janice Rogers Brown, who's also held up for 2 years, but almost 2 years by Democrats in the Senate.
We don't need a female Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, first of all,
so we want a black. We
also care what they care about.
Paris, this is real easy. If a Republican was president, would you be saying appoint a liberal to the court?
I would.
No.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next person. Paris. Come on. Conservatives would not be saying to the president, appoint a justice or who is liberal. So let's just go ahead and be honest. You wouldn't.
She's conservative.
Yes, she is.
And we're going to see a really big Supreme Court around abortion rights that will close nearly all but 10 abortion clinics in Texas. We need not only a black woman, but we need a black woman who is also excellent on these issues. Voting rights, we need some help with it.
All right, folks, we also have Judge Judith, and but the bottom line is, doggone well.
If you want the Republicans to support it, be a smart political move.
You lost your mind. That's like saying if the Democrats were in control, a Republican president would support a liberal justice. Come on, Paris, you know that doggone well. That dog won't hunt. Judge Judith Ann Wilson Rogers replaced Clarence Thomas of the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. Bringing her to the Supreme Court could offer an interesting reunion of the two. You also have Kamala Harris, California's first black attorney general. She's also half Indian, half African American, so she would be a groundbreaking pick for two racial groups. Attorney Lonnie Guinier, the first black female tenured professor at Harvard Law School. She was once considered for the Assistant Attorney General Civil Rights position under President Bill Clinton. You also have, of course, Judge Leah Ward Sears. She's now in private practice, but before that, she was the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. She was at the time, the only black woman to ever be Chief Justice of any Supreme Court in the country. The Honorable Leandra Kruger was a lawyer of the Obama administration. She currently sits on the California Supreme Court. And then, of course, as Avis mentioned earlier, you also have Loretta Lynch as well. I want to go to Yolanda here. And don't forget, also out of Houston, my golf buddy, the Honorable Vanessa Gilmore, was appointed to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas back in '94, making her then the youngest sitting federal judge in the country at the time. We also have Judge Wilhelmina Wright, who serves on the U.S. District Court in Minnesota. She was also appointed by President Barack Obama. Yolanda, there are a number of folks here. I still believe that whether it's National Congress of Negro Women, whether it's AKAs, Deltas, the Links, whether it's any number of groups, black women have to be extremely vocal saying, Mr. President, it's a time for return on investment. We supported you at a higher rate than anybody else in 2008 and 2012.
I agree. But I think the work has already been done. Our two Democratic nominees, our two Democratic candidates, they know the pressure is on with Black Lives Matter. Obama is seeing what is happening out there, and I'm making my prediction right now. Leandra Kruger will be the next nominee.
Ted, of that list, who do you believe should be the strong choice of the president?
Well, first, let me say that, I think some of the names on that list are probably going to be non-starters just because the president, as both parties have been trying to do, they're likely to pick somebody who's on the younger side rather than somebody who's, used to be you pick somebody around 60 or whatever, experience, wisdom, but nowadays they're looking for somebody who can serve for 30 or 40 years.
Same thing happened with Anthony Scalia, who's in his 40s, and he served 30 plus years on the Supreme Court. That's always been a Republican strategy. You're right, go ahead.
Yeah, but I also think that Loretta Lynch has a tremendous advantage in that she's been vetted, she's been confirmed recently. She has a law and order background, which makes a difference. So does Ms. Harris. She doesn't come out of what they can call a kind of activist liberal background. But I'm very comfortable with her, by the way, for a number of reasons. But I think she's the lead. I think they want somebody who's vetted and who knows people in the Senate. Who have a relationship. She has all that.
Also, I think it's with Loretta Lynch, you have someone who is not being a judge, so you don't have this whole process of reviewing previous legal rulings, and so it's really her work as a U.S. attorney, also the Attorney General. You also, of course, have this issue here, and I need Paris to address this here. I talked to Michael Steele yesterday, former chair of the Republican National Committee, and let's just say he had some extremely strong words for Republicans and how they have behaved since the death of Antonin Scalia. Go ahead and play that.
Well, this is the game that everyone's playing right now because they recognize the stakes are very hard. And I've said for a long, long time, in every presidential cycle, the most important position to focus on is not the White House, but the Supreme Court. And no one does. Now that reality has come home in spades, and you're having this reaction because they fear they're on the short end of this. I look at it this way. Okay, so let's replay the scenario out the way the Republicans want right now, and all the arguments that they're making right now about why the president shouldn't give us to the next election. What do they do if Hillary Clinton is sitting down at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and she sends up a nominee? What are they going to do then? What do you say then? Oh, and what do you say then in the course of that if you lose the Senate because of this? Because you put those blue state Republicans in play for some real challenge and you lose the Senate, then what you going to do? Be smart, folks. And I tell you, man, I've been inside that elephant, and sometimes there's some dumb suckers up in there.
Paris.
If you're implying I'm a dumb sucker, Roland,
I want you to respond to what Michael Steele just said.
No, I think Chairman Steele, I respect him. I think he's raising some valid points, and it's, elections have consequences, and one of them is that I believe the president does deserve to have his pick. But I also believe that Republicans, there's been a strong sense that we haven't really fought back. And a lot of the in the base. Well, you look at major legislation.
Wait, hold up. The president said yesterday he has 14 judges right now being held up by Republicans.
Right. I'm just talking about
14.
There's a sentiment amongst the base that says that a lot of the Republicans in the Senate, that's why there's an outsider mentality that they like in support of.
The base is lying.
I'm just saying what the base feels, and so there is a plan in place to prevent the president from putting up a liberal justice. But you could have somebody like
No. Michael Steele criticized Republicans because they have made it clear they don't want They said before there's even a nominee, we're not going to consider it. We're not going to think about it. We don't care. And I know it's playing to the base, but it's also shameful.
Strategies are not governed. Republicans have consistently showed us that they want these positions in office, but they literally don't want to do anything but hold up progress. They say they want a Supreme Court nominee who will uphold the Constitution, but you're literally standing in the way of the Constitution and our president's right to appoint someone.
Both sides play politics.
No. I'm asking. Here's the deal, though. In 1988, were Democrats in control of the U.S. State Senate?
No.
They weren't. When Ronald Reagan appointed Anthony Kennedy to the Supreme Court, was Anthony Kennedy confirmed in February 1988?
He was.
Did Ronald Reagan not stand up? Did President Reagan not stand up and say there should be bipartisan support? We should have a fully functioning Supreme Court.
He did.
So if President Ronald Reagan, if Democrats and Kennedy was approved 97-0,
correct,
why would Republicans say with 11 months left in the president's term, hey, I'm sorry, you don't get your pick?
You bow out gracefully.
No, I'm not going to bow out gracefully at all. What I'm saying is it's a political strategy.
Gotcha.
And what Chairman Sill was saying, it's a risky one.
I got you.
It's a very risky.
All right, we're gonna
they were ahead of the progress when it came to.
Hold tight 1 second. I gotta go to a break. Ted Shaw, appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much. All right.
Yeah, so another Republican, Pariston Hard, bites the dust. This is ridiculous what these guys are doing. But again, really quick, the logical choice here obviously would be Loretta Lynch, and she would be the one who would be least impacted. Normally, when a name is presented, and actually even when the president starts to vet, the person that he's vetting normally reduces whatever their workload is, and in the case of a judge, normally reduces it down to 0. So once a name is placed in nomination and presented to the Senate, that person completely shuts down what they're doing if they are in a judiciary capacity. Now, since Loretta Lynch is the Attorney General, she would be the least impacted, as she would continue to do her job, which is an executive one. So let's see what happens.